The moment that changed everything. The train was packed that morning. Elbows touched shoulders. Heads tilted downward toward glowing phones. And the air was warm with the breath of dozens of strangers sharing too little space. The morning rush in downtown Los Angeles was never kind, but today felt especially heavy. The skies outside were gray. The city, though alive, moved with a certain tiredness. Keanu Reeves stood near the center of the train, holding onto the metal pole with one hand, his other hand deep in the pocket of a worn black coat. He had worn a hat low over his forehead and simple jeans. Nothing about him screamed celebrity. He blended in with everyone else, and that was how he liked it. He had an early meeting in the city, a quiet appointment with a community shelter. He supported but never talked about publicly. It wasn't about press. It was about people. He looked around, eyes soft, scanning faces. Everyone looked lost in their own world. Eyes down, shoulders slouched. No one spoke. Then he noticed her. She stepped into the train at the next stop. Her hand gently rubbed the side of her stomach. She was maybe in her late 20s. Her hair was tied back, face pale, eyes tired. She looked around the crowded train, searching for a place to sit. No one moved, not one person. Keanu watched her sway slightly as the train jerked forward. Her hand gripped a rail, but it was clear she was struggling. Keanu didn't hesitate. He stepped toward her, touched her shoulder lightly, and said in the softest voice, "Please, take my seat." Her eyes widened, not because she recognized him, but because someone had noticed her. Someone had seen her. "Thank you," she whispered. He helped her to the seat and stood beside her, bracing himself again with the metal pole. But someone else had been watching across the train. A man in a crisp business suit rolled his eyes and muttered loud enough to be heard. "Probably just wants attention. These celebs always act like heroes when people are watching." Keanu turned his head slightly, but said nothing. The pregnant woman looked down, her face flushing. Keanu leaned closer and said gently, "Ignore him. Some people talk loud because silence scares them." Her lips trembled, and then she smiled. The man scoffed again. "Bet you've never had to stand on a train before in your life." Still, Keanu stayed silent. The train moved on. But what no one knew, what Keanu didn't know, was that a teenager sitting in the corner had taken a photo, just one. It showed Keanu standing quietly next to the pregnant woman, his face calm, the world around him too distracted to care. The photo would soon circle the globe. But the story hadn't even begun yet. After 4 stops, the woman stood slowly. "This is me," she said softly. Keanu nodded, stepping aside to help her through. The crowd. As she walked out, she turned to him and said, "You didn't have to do that. I know." He said, "That's why I did." She blinked twice, then disappeared through the closing doors. Keanu took her seat now, quietly, and thought nothing of it. What he didn't know was that the woman had collapsed 10 minutes after leaving the train. She had faded right there on the sidewalk. A bystander had called 911. An ambulance came quickly, and when she arrived at the hospital, the doctors found something critical. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. So high, in fact, that if she had remained standing on that train much longer, she could have lost her baby. They acted fast, stabilized her, and saved her, the doctor later said. Whoever gave up their seat may have just saved 2 lives. That moment, that act so simple, so unnoticed, had changed everything. Later that night, as Keanu sat alone in his hotel room, reading a book with the window cracked open to the cool night air, he heard a ping. His phone buzzed again and again. He finally picked it up. A friend had sent a message. "Did you see this? You're trending again." Keanu opened the link. There it was. The photo. And beneath it, thousands of comments. "This is why I love Keanu. True kindness is quiet. He saved a life without knowing it." The woman's sister had posted an update to the man on the train who gave up his seat to my pregnant sister. "You don't know this, but that simple act helped save her and the baby. We are forever grateful. We found out it was Keanu Reeves. May God bless you." Keanu read the message twice, then set the phone down. He didn't reply. He didn't repost. He didn't speak about it in interviews. But he sat quietly by the window, looking at the night sky, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed a tear to fall, not for himself, but for the strange, beautiful way the world sometimes reminds us one simple moment can matter more than we'll ever know. But something else was unfolding. The story was being picked up not just by fans but by someone from Keanu's past, a woman he hadn't seen in years, someone who had once taught him something he'd never forgotten. She had seen the photo, and she had something important to say, something that would change Keanu's understanding of that day forever. The woman from his past next morning came with soft rain tapping against the glass. Keanu stood by the hotel window, staring at the city below. Horns honked in the distance. Umbrellas bloomed like flowers on the sidewalks. He sipped black coffee in silence, unaware that the world outside was still buzzing from a photo that had now been seen by millions. A knock came at the door. It wasn't loud. It was soft, respectful. His assistant, Lara, peeked in. "Sorry to disturb, but you should see this." She handed him a small letter. No logo, no signature, just his name written carefully on the envelope. Keanu opened it. Slowly. Inside was a simple handwritten note. "I saw the photo. I'm not surprised. You were always the boy who stood for others. We need to talk. Mrs. Abramson." Keanu stared at the name. Mrs. Abramson. His high school teacher. His favorite one. The one who once told him, "Your kindness will take you farther than any talent ever will." He hadn't seen her in years. And now, suddenly, she was back. They agreed to meet that afternoon at a quiet library downtown. Keanu arrived early. He didn't bring anyone with him. No cameras, no guards. Just himself. He waited in a corner chair, near a tall window overlooking a small garden. When she walked in, he recognized her instantly. Her hair had gone gray, but her walk was the same. Steady, strong, eyes full of the same fire he remembered. She smiled as she approached. "Keanu," she said gently. He stood and hugged her without hesitation. "You look just the same," he said. "And you look tired," she replied, touching his arm. They sat across from each other, surrounded by books and quiet voices. "I didn't think I'd hear from you," Keanu said. "I wasn't planning to," she admitted, "until I saw the photo." "What made you write?" Mrs. Abramson looked at him deeply. "Because I know that wasn't the first time you gave your seat to someone." Keanu smiled slightly. "I've done it a lot. Just quietly." "No," she said. "I mean years ago, in my classroom." "Do you remember what happened to Emily?" Keanu blinked. Emily. A quiet girl from his senior year. She sat in the back, always wore long sleeves, rarely smiled, barely spoke. He remembered once moving his chair to sit next to her when others avoided her. "Yes," he said slowly. "I remember." Mrs. Abramson nodded. "What you didn't know is that she was going through something terrible at home. Every day she walked into that classroom, she carried pain no one could see. But the day you gave her your seat and sat beside her, she told me, for the first time in weeks, she felt human again." Keanu looked away, the memory returning like a soft ache in his chest. "She said you didn't say much," Mrs. Abramson continued. "Just smiled and shared your notebook. But it was enough. It made her stay. And that one moment led to many more. Eventually, she got help, she graduated, and today she's a school counselor." Keanu let out a slow breath. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I know," Mrs. Abramson said. "You never ask for credit, but you should understand something. Keanu, what you did yesterday on that train, it saved a life. But you've been saving lives for years, just by being present, by noticing." Keanu stayed quiet. Then said, "Sometimes I wonder if it's enough." Mrs. Abramson reached across the table and took his hand. "You are enough." Later that evening, back at his hotel, Keanu sat with his thoughts. He thought about Emily, the pregnant woman, the unborn child, Mrs. Abramson, and the thousands of strangers writing to him online, sharing their own stories of being helped by small acts. His phone buzzed. A message from Lara. "You need to see this." Attached, a news video clip. He clicked play. A reporter stood outside the hospital where the pregnant woman had been treated. The young woman, identified only as Marie, gave birth earlier than expected. but both she and the baby are healthy. Doctors confirmed that had she not been sitting on the train that morning, things could have turned much worse. The baby boy is now in stable condition, and the family has asked for privacy except for one statement. Keanu leaned forward. The screen cut to a handwritten note held up by Marie's sister. To the man who gave up his seat, our son is alive because of you. His name is Elias. We hope he grows up to be like you. Keanu put the phone down and covered his face with both hands. He wasn't crying. Not exactly. It was something deeper. A quiet breaking open of the heart. The next morning, Keanu returned to the shelter he had originally planned to visit. He walked in without announcing himself, without a camera. He helped serve breakfast, poured coffee, handed out blankets. One of the young volunteers, a college student named Raheem, pulled him aside. "Mr. Reeves," he said, nervous, "I saw the story about the train, the woman, the baby." Keanu smiled. "Call me Keanu." "Keanu," Raheem said slowly. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When I was 12, Raheem said, I saw you give your coat to a man outside a grocery store. He was barefoot. I never forgot that. It changed how I see the world. Now I'm here, helping, because of that." Keanu blinked. He didn't remember that moment. But maybe that's how kindness works. You never know which act will echo. As the sun set that evening, Keanu sat on a park bench watching kids play. A gentle wind moved through the trees. He felt at peace, not because he had saved a life but because he had shown up, again and again. Suddenly, someone approached quietly. A woman, holding a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Marie. Keanu stood quickly. She smiled. Her eyes were full. "I heard you might be here," she said. He looked down at the baby. "Is this Elias?" She nodded. "Would you like to hold him?" Keanu hesitated, then reached out, carefully taking the small child into his arms. Elias stirred, then settled. "Thank you," she said. "I just gave up a seat." He said softly, "No." Marie replied, "You gave us a future." Keanu looked down at the child, then up at the woman who almost didn't make it. He said nothing, but in his heart, a quiet promise was made. He would keep showing up. Because even the smallest moment, even the act of giving up a seat, can change the entire course of a life. The ripple nobody expected. The days that followed were quiet. Keanu stayed in Los Angeles a little longer than planned, not because of the attention. In fact, he tried to avoid that. He stayed because something inside him told him to. Something about that child Elias and his mother Marie. Something about the story unfolding beneath the headlines. He walked the city with no disguise. People noticed him now more than ever. Some smiled and nodded. Some whispered. Others came up just to say thank you. But most of the time, he just listened. And as he walked, he began to realize something powerful. That single moment on the train had done more than save a life. It had started something. A ripple. 2 weeks later, Keanu received an invitation in the mail. It was simple, a handwritten note, no logo, no formality. "Dear Mr. Reeves, my name is Clara. I am the school counselor at Rosewood High in Long Beach. One of my students saw the video of you helping Marie on the train. He shared it with the class, and it sparked something powerful. Students began opening up. We've never seen anything like it. Would you consider coming to speak with them? Not as a celebrity, just as yourself. Sincerely, Clara." Keanu stared at the letter for a long time. He didn't usually do school visits, not unless he was asked by someone close. But something about this felt different. So he said yes. On a gray Monday morning, Keanu walked into Rosewood High with no cameras, no announcement. The principal met him at the front steps and guided him down a long hallway. Students peeked through doors as he passed, whispers floating in the air. The classroom was small, maybe 20 chairs, a few old posters on the walls. One reading, "Kindness is louder than words." Keanu stepped inside and saw a mix of students. Some looked shy, others guarded. One boy in the back wore a hoodie pulled low over his eyes. Clara smiled and welcomed him with gentle warmth. "Everyone," she said, "this is Keanu." Double quotes. No one clapped. No one cheered. Just silence. Keanu didn't mind. He sat on a stool at the front and began, I don't have a speech. I don't want to impress you. I just want to tell you a story. And so he told them about the train, about Marie, about the baby, about how something so small, so simple, could matter so deeply. And then he paused. You don't need to be famous, he said, to make a difference. You just need to be kind when no one's watching. A girl raised her hand slowly. What if no one's ever kind to you? She asked. Her voice trembled. Keanu nodded. Then your kindness becomes a seed, not for others but for yourself. The room went still. Then something unexpected happened. The boy in the hoodie at the back stood up. His name was Josh. And with shaking hands, he pulled out a note from his pocket. I wrote this last week, he said, after I saw your photo. I was planning to do something. I shouldn't. I didn't think anyone would notice if I was gone. Keanu stood slowly. Josh handed him the note. But then said, but someone gave up their seat. And now here I am. Keanu didn't read the note aloud. He didn't need to. He folded it gently and said, thank you for staying. The class didn't move. Then slowly, one by one, students began to speak. Stories spilled out. Stories of broken homes, of nights with no sleep. Of secrets held too long. But now shared. The bell never rang. No one wanted to leave. Later, as Keanu walked back through the hallway, Clara walked beside him. What you did here, she said, I've been trying to do for years. But sometimes, one voice from outside echoes louder. Keanu shook his head. They already had what they needed. They just needed space to say it. She nodded, holding back tears. Thank you for giving them that. Back at the hotel that evening, Keanu received a video on his phone. It was from Clara. A short clip. The students had made a thank you message, each one holding up a sign with a word written on it. You helped us stay when we wanted to disappear. Thank you for seeing us. He watched it twice. Then looked out the window and whispered, thank you for staying. What he didn't know was that the video from Rosewood High would be shared across the country, and it would reach the eyes of a woman in Chicago. A nurse. A mother. The woman who had once helped raise Keanu when his own world fell apart. She hadn't seen him in decades, but the moment she saw his face on that classroom video, her heart stopped, because she knew he was the boy she had once pulled off a sidewalk in the rain, the boy who had no coat. No shoes. And now, he was the man saving lives with kindness. She picked up the phone and called a number she hadn't dialed in years. Is this Keanu Reeves' assistant? She asked. Yes. Who's calling? The woman took a breath. My name is Nurse Maria. Please tell him. The woman from his childhood remembers him, and she's so proud. The woman who once saved him. Keanu stood still in the hotel lobby, holding his phone in his hand. The message had just come in from Lara, his assistant. Someone named Nurse Maria called. She said you'd know who she is. She asked us to tell you. She remembers, and she's proud of you. His heart beat a little faster. Nurse Maria. A name he hadn't heard in years, but the moment he read it, it was like the walls of time fell around him. And suddenly, he was that boy again, barefoot, soaked in rain, sitting on the sidewalk with nothing but silence in his chest. He remembered her clearly now. He was around 12. His mother had been in and out of hospitals, caught between illness and despair. There were nights she didn't speak at all. One evening, Keanu had wandered away from the apartment. No shoes, no jacket, just pain. He sat in front of a small grocery store, knees pulled to his chest. And then she came, Nurse Maria, not in uniform, just a stranger passing by. She saw him. She stopped. She didn't ask questions, didn't assume. She simply sat beside him in the rain and said, You're not invisible. He had cried, and she held him, gave him a sandwich from her bag, then bought him dry socks. She sat with him until his aunt arrived. He never saw her again, but he never forgot. And now, she had found him. That night, Keanu called the number Lara had written down. His fingers trembled slightly as he held the phone to his ear. It rang once, twice, then clicked. Hello, came a soft voice. Maria. Keanu asked. A pause. Yes. Who's this? It's me, the boy from the sidewalk. Double quotes, silence. Then a slow, emotional breath. Keanu? He smiled. I've been trying to thank you for decades. Maria didn't speak for a moment. Then her voice broke. I can't believe it's you. I watched your movies, but I never imagined, after all these years, you saved me," he said, not just that night, but for years after. "You were the moment I realized people still care." Maria sniffled on the other end. "I just sat down beside you, and that changed everything." She was quiet again, then whispered, "I'd love to see you, if you'd like." Keanu smiled. "I'd like that very much." The next day, he flew to Chicago. No press, no announcement. Just him. When he arrived at her small home, the porch light was already on, though it was daytime. She stood at the door waiting, older now, her hair silver, her frame smaller but her eyes were the same. When he stepped out of the car, she walked down the steps and opened her arms without a word. He hugged her, and for a moment, the world fell away. They sat in her living room, sipping tea, laughing quietly about the past, and sharing stories they never thought they'd tell anyone else. "I was so broken back then," Keanu said. "And you didn't even know me." "I didn't need to," Maria said. "I just knew you needed someone to stop and sit." He looked around the modest home. Pictures of grandchildren lined the shelves, a quiet life, full of service and grace. "Why didn't you try to find me?" he asked softly. Maria smiled. "Because that moment wasn't about being remembered. It was about showing you that you mattered." While Keanu stayed in Chicago for the evening, Maria invited a few close friends to dinner. As they sat around the table, one of her grandchildren, Lucas, age 16, asked Keanu, "Is it true you saved a pregnant woman on the train?" Keanu nodded. "Yes, but really, I just gave her my seat, and that saved her," Lucas asked. Keanu leaned in. "Sometimes, giving someone a seat gives them a reason to keep going, especially when the world won't make room for them." Lucas stared at him, then said something no one expected. "I want to be that kind of man." Keanu looked at Maria, whose eyes were now full of quiet tears. "You already are," Keanu said gently. The following week, back in Los Angeles, Keanu began receiving letters, handwritten ones, thousands. Students, mothers, fathers, strangers, from other countries, stories of how his simple act had inspired them to do something kind. But one letter stood out. It was from a man in Ohio. "Dear Keanu, my brother saw your story online. He had been planning something dark, something final. But he told me, if that guy can care enough to stand up for a stranger, maybe the world's not as broken as I thought. He got help. He's alive because of a seat on a train. Thank you." Keanu closed the letter and held it against his chest. Not for ego, not for fame, but for the quiet truth that kindness, no matter how small, keeps saving people over and over again. Later that month, Marie invited Keanu to her home for dinner. It was her way of saying thank you again. But it was also a celebration. Elias had reached 1 month. He was healthy, smiling, alive. As Keanu stepped into the small apartment, he saw a picture hanging on the wall. It was the photo, the one from the train. Him standing beside Marie, helping her to the seat. But underneath, there were words written in marker. "This is where our story began." Marie walked over and handed Elias to Keanu. "I've been thinking," she said. Would you be his godfather?" Keanu blinked. He didn't speak right away. Just held the child closer. Then finally said, "I'd be honored." And in that quiet moment, in a tiny apartment with no cameras, no lights, no noise, Keanu Reeves became more than an actor. He became a promise to show up. To notice, to care. What he didn't know yet was that a documentary team who had been quietly following these ripples of kindness was about to release a short film called The Seat That Saved the World. And soon, people everywhere would begin offering their seats. On buses. On trains. In classrooms. At lunch tables. Not because of a trend, but because they finally understood a seat isn't just a place to rest. It's a place to belong. Movement begins. The short documentary was only 13 minutes long. No dramatic music. No fast cuts. Just quiet footage, voiceovers from Marie, Nurse Maria, Clara from Rosewood High, and a few students. There was a clip of Lucas saying, "He made me believe a small act can matter." And finally, a single sentence from Keanu recorded in a simple room with no lights or sets. "When the world rushes past, someone be the one who stops. They released it online, without much promotion. The title was simple, The Seat That Saved the World. It didn't go viral all at once. It grew like a seed. Shared from person to person. From mother to daughter. From teacher to student. Within a week, over 5 million views. Within 2 weeks, 40 million. By the end of the month, it was being translated into other languages. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the change. In downtown Seattle, a school cafeteria placed a sign above a long empty bench, reserved for kindness. Below it, if someone needs a place to sit, this seat is for them. Within days, students started using it. Quiet kids. Bullied kids. New students. And someone was always there beside them because now, people noticed. In Texas, a group of city bus drivers began calling out, "Seat of honor," anytime they saw someone give up their spot. It became a quiet code of respect. A tattoo artist in London inked the words, "You are not invisible," onto his arm after watching the film, then offered free tattoos of the same message to people who had survived loneliness or depression. The world had changed, and it all started with one man standing on a train. Keanu didn't try to lead it. He didn't stand on stages. Didn't single quotes to organize rallies. He just kept showing up. One day, he visited a children's hospital in Arizona. There were no reporters. He brought books. Sat by beds. Read to kids who could barely keep their eyes open. In the hallway, a nurse leaned toward him and whispered, "This place has been quieter since the film came out. People come to give now, not just to get." Keanu smiled. Then the world's learning. But not everyone liked the change. Some people said it was a publicity stunt. Some said it wouldn't last. One popular blogger wrote, "What's a seat going to change in a world full of war, crime, and hate?" The comment section flooded. But one reply stood out. It wasn't long. It came from an account with no photo. No bio. Just a simple name. Emily_Reich wrote, "He gave me a seat when I was broken. He didn't know it. But that day, I chose to stay alive. Now I help others do the same. Maybe a seat can't change the world, but it changed mine." The post went quiet after that. No one argued. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need a defense. Meanwhile, Marie's son, baby Elias, was growing stronger. On his first public outing, Marie took him to the same train station where it all began. She didn't want to make a scene. She just wanted to say thank you, a quiet thank you to the space where her life changed. But someone noticed her. An older woman. She pointed at the baby and asked, "Is this the little one from the story?" Marie smiled. Double quotes, yes. Double quotes, soon. A small group had formed around her. But they weren't loud. They weren't pushing. They were gentle. One man whispered, "I used to ride this train and think no one cared. Now, people look up." Another woman said, "I started carrying snacks in my bag for anyone who might need one." A teenage boy stepped forward and said, "My mom told me to watch the video. Now I stand up every time someone gets on." They didn't take pictures. They just stood there quietly, as if honoring the moment without needing to speak. Marie whispered to Elias, "Look what you started." Later that night, Keanu received a message from Clara at Rosewood High. "I think you should come back. Something happened." He flew out the next morning. When he entered the school, he noticed something immediately. The atmosphere had shifted. There was energy, but also calm. A sense of respect. The principal greeted him and said, "Come to the courtyard." Keanu stepped outside. And stopped in his tracks. At the center of the courtyard, the students had built a circle of benches, each one hand-painted. Words like, "I'll sit with you, you matter, stay, this is your seat." A plaque in the center read, "Inspired by one act, continued by many, dedicated to Mr. Keanu Reeves." Students stood all around. No one clapped. They just looked at him. With real eyes, with full hearts. Clara stepped beside him. "They wanted you to know. You were the beginning, but they are the future." Keanu felt his throat tighten. "Can I sit down?" he asked quietly. A student nodded and led him to a bench painted in blue and gold. He sat. And one by one, students joined him. No cameras. No speeches. Just presence. Just kindness. The news picked it up a week later. A kindness circle in Rosewood High brings hope across the country, and once again, The ripples spread. In New York, a bus station placed signs on benches that read, "Be the reason someone stays." In Brazil, a train system installed a digital board that highlighted names of people who gave up their seat that day. In Nigeria, a classroom teacher shared a photo of her students taking turns reading stories about empathy. She captioned it, "Thank you, Keanu. Our kids now leave room for others in their hearts and on their chairs." And still, through all of it, Keanu kept moving quietly. Helping. Listening. Not once asking for attention. Just carrying the lesson forward. And on a peaceful morning in early spring, he returned to visit Maria. They sat on her porch drinking tea. "I don't understand it," he said. "What?" she asked. "How something so small became something so big." Maria smiled. "Because kindness is the only thing in the world that multiplies when it's given away." He looked out at the street. A boy walked by with a backpack too heavy for him. A girl ran up beside him and took one strap. Helped him carry it. They didn't see Keanu watching. They just walked together, sharing the weight. And Keanu whispered, almost to himself, "They're learning." What he didn't know was that someone, far away, who had watched from the shadows all along, was preparing to step forward. Someone who had been helped once, but never had the chance to say thank you. And when they did, the entire world would stop and listen. The final thank you. The sun was setting when the letter arrived. It was handwritten. No name on the envelope. Just the words, "For Keanu." Lara, his assistant, handed it to him gently. It came through the shelter, no return address, but you might want to read it. Keanu sat down in the quiet corner of the rooftop garden where he often went to be alone. The wind was soft, and below him the city buzzed like always, cars, voices, movement. But up here, everything felt still. He opened the envelope carefully and began to read. "Dear Keanu, you don't know me, not really, but many years ago you gave me something I've never forgotten. You were walking through downtown late one night, alone, in the rain. I was on a bench, trembling, high, cold, and ready to disappear. I remember you walked past, paused, then turned around. You sat beside me. I didn't speak, but you did. You said, 'Whatever it is, you can get through it, even if it takes a while.' You gave me your scarf. Then you stood up, smiled, and walked away. I never told anyone about it, but it stayed with me. And years later, when I finally got clean, when I finally stepped into my first job interview, I wore that scarf. Now, I work at a community center, and last month, one of the kids showed me your story. The seat on the train, the baby, the classroom benches. I just sat there and cried. You don't remember me, but you were the first person in years who saw me. I just wanted to say, thank you. I hope you're still turning around when you hear pain, because every time you do, you save someone." Keanu folded the letter slowly. His hands shook a little. He stared out at the glowing sky, the edges of the day fading into stars. A single tear slipped down his face. He didn't wipe it away. Later that evening, he visited the shelter again. Not to be seen. Just to be there. He served soup. Carried blankets. Talked with a boy who said, "My mom told me you're the one who gave the seat." Keanu smiled. "Your mom's the real hero," the boy whispered. "She tells people to give up their seats now too, even if it's just a bench at school." Keanu crouched and looked him in the eye. "Then you're part of something big." The boy beamed. And walked away a little taller. That weekend, the kindness circle at Rosewood High grew. New benches were added. Teachers reported fewer fights. Students said the school felt safer, more like a family. In Chicago, Maria received a national award for community service. But she gave her acceptance speech in just one sentence. "I only did what we all should. I sat beside someone when no one else did." In London, buses printed a new message above priority seats: "Give more than a seat, give a moment." In Tokyo, a subway mural was painted, showing people offering their seats to each other with a small drawing of Keanu in the background, smiling softly. And in New York, Marie took Elias back to the station on his first birthday. She placed a single white flower beside the bench where it all began and whispered, "Thank you, stranger." But the world knew his name now, and more importantly, they knew his heart. On the anniversary of that quiet day on the train, Keanu was invited to speak at a global kindness conference. He hesitated. He didn't like microphones, but Maria encouraged him. So did Marie. So did Clara. So did thousands of letters from strangers he never met but somehow changed. So he stood on the stage. No script, no spotlight, just him. He looked at the audience and said, "The world doesn't need heroes. It needs people who see, who listen, who give up their seat, not because they have to, but because someone else might need it more." I didn't know a moment on a train would matter, but maybe that's the point. Every moment matters, even the ones that feel small. So here's what I've learned. If you want to change the world, just look up, see who's standing, and give them your seat. The room was silent. Then rose to its feet. But Keanu didn't stay for applause. He stepped down quietly, and later that night, he walked the city again, alone, unseen, until he saw a woman waiting outside a bus stop. She was older. Her legs shook. The bus arrived. People rushed on. Keanu followed. Someone tried to take the last seat. But he stopped them, gestured toward the woman. She sat down, surprised. Then looked up at him. He smiled and stood, just like always, because that's who he was, a man who understood sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is a seat.